Okay, we're going to get started with military. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
All right, I'm Clayton Chappell. I'm the Director of Installations and Environment for the Nevada Army National Guard. I have with me Mr. Chad Reese. He oversees all the facility maintenance and projects for us. One other individual that was going to be here and is actually doing a majority of the presentation, Mr. Brian Hunsaker, who's our projects and designs manager. A couple of his children got in an auto accident, so he's unable to be here today. So we are the backup to this. So, well, at least we're going to try. So we're your post-lunch entertainment for this afternoon. And we'll try to keep you entertained as we go through these various projects that we have. I first off want to explain just a little bit about some of the funding. Some of the board members may not be familiar with the Office of the Military's funding that we get, at least on the federal side. Typically, there's two sources of funding that we get. There's a whole bunch of other sources we ultimately end up getting funds from, but the two primary sources is military construction funds, and we also get what's called the Sustainment Restoration Modernization Funds. Those are like a lot of the maintenance and repair projects that we get. The military construction funds that we get is oftentimes spread out all the states and territories across the U.S. And as a small state, we're pretty successful. We get them about every. Just unplugged. We get them about every 5 years, which is advantageous to us. Try to catch up with all the growth that we've had in the Office of the Military and in the National Guard. Our first project that we're going to ultimately talk about is one of those military construction projects. It was first designed under 17 CIP, and we plan on going to construction in 19 on this one. And then the majority of the funds that we get are, as I said, Sustainment Restoration Modernization, or as in the military, we throw out acronyms, it's SRM funds. And we have been very successful in the state of Nevada grabbing end-of-year funds on the fiscal year. We execute anywhere from $3 to upwards of $5 million towards the end of a fiscal year. I think last year we were close to $3 million. And so the difficulty we have is our facilities are tied to a state match. Not all of them, but majority of them are. And so when we go to execute and we get federal dollars in the middle of a biennium, we end up having to put the funding towards our federal facilities, or federally supported facilities, rather than our state facilities. And as we go through this, you'll see why we need additional state dollars in order to execute even more federal dollars. One last thing before we start getting through the projects is last biennium, I think it was about 8 projects. We executed with the federal dollars we were able to execute in the first year of the biennium, meaning the second year we didn't have the state funds, and so we couldn't do any projects that required state funding. So I'm just kind of giving you a picture of how successful we've been in getting federal dollars. Now our limiting factor is getting the state dollars to execute. So if there are any questions with that, we'll start with our very first project. We have done several steps to try to cut back on this project, and we now need $3.4 million to finish this project. There are several items that we'll need. It's like military parking, kitchen equipment, caging, cages in the storage rooms and for sensitive items, and also equipment storage lockers. We've excluded them from the project at this time. They're additive bid items based on the bids that we get here, and we anticipate a November bid opening for this project. Next slide. Here are some of the steps that we've taken to reduce costs and just reduce the project. We've reduced it by 25,000 square feet. As I said, we've moved these particular items into additive bid items. And we've also, we have requested additional federal funds. Now this will be based on the bids that come back. Once we get the bids back, and we'll go back to National Guard Bureau and say, hey, can you squeeze out a couple million to $3 million to help us finalize this project? Without that, we are relying on the state at roughly $3.4 million to complete this project.
Mr. Chairman, Ward Patrick, if I could interject. Ward Patrick for the record. Yeah, so there's a number of projects that are in construction that have been experiencing this double-digit, call it hyperinflation. And so we'd let the board know that, the team has been working closely on this project and other projects to try to meet all the original programmatic needs, but still fall within the budget. And so some other projects that this has happened to is the Department of Motor Vehicles. We heard from them already, I believe. They'll be this afternoon, right before administration. So there'll be a project that looks like this. We'll call it a completion project. When we had double-digit inflation back in the mid-2000s, there were a lot of completion projects that would end up going to the legislature. So this is kind of a hyperinflation type of a normal reaction. And so, but again, you'll see that these agencies with the design team and the Public Works project management staff, everybody's working vigorously to provide the right building, but figure out how to make it the most efficient building it can be, remove things that maybe Chris Chimitz would have loved to have seen, architectural fluff, we're now getting a plainer, simpler type of a structure, but meeting the programmatic needs. And so the DMV project we'll see this afternoon, we've basically received permission from the Interim Finance Committee to proceed with that project on this reduced basis. We've already been working on the UNR engineering building that was discussed yesterday. It's a construction project. We brought in $4 million of other funding on that project. So these three construction projects have seen the effects of inflation, and there's been solutions moving forward. And so this is a solution for this project. So the team was working hard on this and kind of holding it within the team's realm of influence, but yet there's these items that would have all these alternates. And so we come to the table and we look at these projects and field lockers and wire partitions, which is how they organize the individuals' equipment and all their platoons' equipment, keep them orderly. They really need that. So all these items on here are things that are really needed. There are other alternates that are considered in the project that are nice to have, but so I would just leave you with the thought that you can see the square footage was optimized, and this request is down to what was needed, not everything that could have been put in the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. And just for clarification, this project is designed and ready to go, correct? And if the answer to that is yes, does the current design reflect the reduced scope that you mentioned?
For the record, Clayton Chapel, Nevada Army National Guard. We're going to finalize the design next month and then go out to bid and have the bids in November and then hopefully construction. It does reflect all the reductions. All right, any questions? We'll go to the next, the second one. All right, the second one is the next project is a emergency on a drill weekend. Nearly 1,000 troops and aviation soldiers roam in this complex up at the state airport. But when it was constructed in the late 90s, it was not a requirement to have an emergency generator. But as it's being designated as an emergency center, we see the need and know that the requirement is to have an emergency generator. So obviously it'll be sized for the facility, and we're asking, and with each one of these projects, except for the very first one, we're asking for a match to our federal dollars that we'll bring to the table. If there are no questions on this one, we'll go to the next one. All right, the next one is, and we're going to bounce around the state, north, south, and outline armories as well. So this one is in southern Nevada, and this is at our Clark County Readiness Center, which is in North Las Vegas. This is built in the mid-90s, and that picture there is actually of the bathroom, the shower stalls there. We have, once again, roughly 600 soldiers trained at this site, but at times when we're bringing in soldiers from Arizona to match up with the rest of the unit. We'll be up to 1,000 soldiers, and the bathrooms have not been maintained well enough, and they're falling apart, and does not meet the requirements that we have to maintain. And in addition, as it says, female soldiers, the bathroom is way inadequate for that. So what this would do is we'd redesign both the men's bathroom and the female bathroom, and make it meet requirement, and make it so the when folks shower there, there's a smell that just permeates through that building. It's not draining properly. We have a whole bunch of issues with this one. Once again, there's federal dollars that will need a state match to complete this project. If there are no questions on this one, we'll go to the next one. The next one is also in Southern Nevada. It's at our Henderson Readiness Center. Similar to the one we just talked about, this is another bathroom refit. This, however, was built in the 1970s. There's been quite a bit of work done, and we appreciate the board and the support we've had at that facility. Massive changes we've done to that building. One of the last items that we have is the bathrooms need to be redone to meet the requirements. Once again, federal dollars will be brought forward, and need a state match to complete this project. And this is at the Henderson Readiness Center. No questions on that one. We'll go to the next one. All right, so now we're going out to Elko County. You'll see this referred to throughout the presentation as the Elko County Readiness Center. It's also known as the Carlin Readiness Center, and many of you are probably familiar. It used to be the Fire Science Academy. All right, so we purchased this a few years ago and built a readiness center out there, and now we're in the process of maintaining several of the facilities that were out there at this campus. One of the primary issues we have out there is the water and the water tank that supplies the domestic water out there. It is deteriorating, and it could be, in a sense, if it continues to do, it'll be a health, life, safety issue as far as potable water out at that site. This one, once again, is a split, but because of the way that it is funded, it is 80% state, 20% federal, the way that is being used out at that site. So this will take a little bit more of the state funding, but once again, federal dollars will be brought to the table. We'll need that state match in order to complete this project.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask you to explain why the funding is different on the other ones, what drives that to be 20% fed?
All right. For the record, this is Clayton Chapel. So at this particular site, we bought a complete complex, and typically the Readiness Center is funded 50-50 and supported 50-50. But there are several buildings out there that we as the National Guard are not authorized to operate. So those remain on the state books. But we have the staff that maintains them and keeps them clean. Any questions on the Elko County?
Ward Patrick, for the record. I know our staff is working diligently on all these projects to assure there's integration, and when the project happens, we know how it's going to kind of roll out. And so oftentimes when we do this water tank type work, we have, say, a redundant tank system. Can you give me an indication of how that's going to happen, or should we table that item with our engineer that worked on this project?
For the record, Clayton Chapel, I do not have the answer to that at this time, so we'll have to table it and get back with you on that one as far as the redundant system out of that site. I know that we do have water buffaloes we could take out there to maintain some water out there, but I'm not sure that's the solution at this time.
Thank you. Sorry, Ward Patrick, for the record. Yeah, we'll keep working together on that. That's part of normal business. Thank you.
All right, if there are no further questions on this one or items we brought up, we'll go now to Reno, our facility at Plum Lane Armory, just west of the airport. I heard the Veterans Affairs talk a little bit about lighting. This is a lighting project as well as a air conditioning replacement, rooftop unit replacement. It's nearing its useful age there at the 20-year mark, and we need to upgrade, particularly with the activities there. We do have our family services that operates out of this building, out of this facility, and we also have recruiting, which is there early in the morning, late at night, and the lighting there is not adequate to maintain the security and the safety that we believe of the soldiers and employees at that facility. This one, I want to point out, is 75% federal, 25% state, and that's because this is owned by the Corps of Engineers, and with that, the funding is more federal than it is state. But we'll need the state funds in order to execute this project and complete it. Any questions on the Plum Lane facility? All right, we'll go to back to Washoe, our Washoe County facility. Once again, we have several energy efficiency type projects. This is a facility that was built in the late 90s and damaged because of, as it says there, hailstorms in 2016 caused extensive damage. We actually are getting the roof replaced as we speak through previous CIP projects, so we're getting that taken care of, but we do need our HVAC system upgraded. There has been detections at times levels of carbon monoxide, and so they're opening up doors to get some airflow through that building, particularly on the drill hall floor. This one is a 50-50 split, federal to state. Are there any questions on that one? All right, now we'll go back down to Southern Nevada and go to our Clark County, our North Las Vegas site. Similar type of thing, our HVAC systems need some extensive renovation. While there has been work done in the last 20 years to that system, unfortunately the fan coils and the evaporative coolers that were installed are nearing their end of their useful life, and we'll need some state funding in order to fix the system that we currently have down there. Office of the Adjutant General off of Fairview. It's almost reached 17 years. It's pretty amazing because I've been there all 17 years. But the way the system is set up, you cannot cool the dining portion of this without being occupied in the kitchen. So you're having a system that's working cooling areas that don't need to be cooled when you were trying to get people to enjoy a meal through the dining facility. And then there has the locker rooms and the restrooms are also tied into the system that need to be redone. This needs a redesign and a complete replacement of elements on this particular facility. This is a 50-50 supported facility. Any questions? We'll go on to the next one. This is a picture of a loading dock that we don't have, but we'd like one. This is at our North Las Vegas. It's a fairly new facility. It built in 2014. There are roughly 800 vehicles that are used here, and we end up having to go to another facility nearby to use their loading dock, which is slows down the process of annual training or training on the drill weekends. And so we're requesting a loading dock at this facility at a 50-50 split. Any questions? All right, this is a statewide. We've done pretty well in replacing a lot of our overhead coiling doors, and we have some pretty efficient systems in a majority of our facilities. However, there's still some outlying ones that need it, and I think the way it's broken down is we have 3 at Henderson. I know we have 3 of Henderson. I've seen those. Those really need replacement. We have 1 at the Washoe County here at the State Airport. We also have 1 at our Las Vegas Readiness Center off of Silverado Ranch Boulevard, and then we have 5 doors here in Carson City that need to replace. So this is statewide, as I said, various locations of replacing overhead doors and coiling doors that are not efficient and not working well. This is a 50-50 split. All those buildings that I did mention are supported 50% federally, so it'll keep it pretty easy. All right, our next project is Clark County, and we've had some issue. This is the one I'm talking about. We've done quite a bit of work on the HVAC system. This is like the second or third project where and I mentioned the bathrooms need to be replaced, but another thing that is critical here is interior and exterior doors. We do have some issues, particularly in the back where the sun has damaged quite a bit of the facility, and including the doors and just the in and out of soldiers going in and out of that facility has created issues. And we're maintaining them, but they do need to be replaced. And it's difficult getting replacement parts for the current doors that are in there. So we're looking at a complete replacement of the various doors at that facility. Any questions? All right, we'll go to our next project. All right, this is a lighting upgrade at our Las Vegas Readiness Center. This is located off of Silverado Ranch. I heard the Veterans Affairs Director talk a little bit about LED lights and the advantages that all you're aware of upgrading, and we're have some issues with just the way it's currently being controlled, and having soldiers having to almost on a daily basis change some of the controls on that, just to when they come on, when they go off, and sometimes they get skipped, and we'll be given the calls, hey, you still got lights on and it's 10 o'clock at night, can you start turning these things off? And this is kind of in a residential area, so we're working with the neighbors, and for the most part it's been pretty good, but this will help our lighting upgrade and more energy efficient at this location. There are also, we would qualify for some Nevada energy rebates on this project. This is a 50-50 split. All right. No questions on this one. We'll go to our next LED lighting project, and this is the Washoe County Armory here at Stead Airport. Similar type of stuff. We're working with the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority and the Stead folks at getting better lighting for our soldiers out there, but at the same time maintaining the light discipline that the airport would like us to have in that area as well. This is also an ability to qualify for some rebates through the Nevada Energy Program. All right, any questions? We'll now go to the security fencing. We were successful, and it had already been a master plan within the Reno Tahoe Airport's master plan of extending and expanding our footprint out at Washoe, and we were successful in getting several acres out there. I can't remember the number. What was it? 64 acres out there. And so what this project would do is extend our security fencing in that area, and then we're going to expand parking because we're severely hampered by our parking out there and our ability to, and it will also future construction. We do have as I mentioned, a military construction projects, and we do have funding for a 2023 expansion to that facility coming up. So we obviously got the land. Now we're going to start to design and do additional construction, but we need additional fencing to secure our property. Any questions? This is a 50-50 split on this one. All right. All right, this one is, it's been brought up a few times with the board. Heavy rains, and this is an actual picture of, and you may not think this is Henderson, but it is springtime in Henderson, and we do have some severe erosion problems, and this is actually the part of the entryway to that facility. So we've done quite a bit of work over time, and we're working with the city of Henderson on stuff in this area, in this outside of our gate area, but we need some money from the state in order to match the federal dollars to help redesign and fix some of the runoff. If you've been in this particular area, there's a lot of there's on one side is residential and on the other side is commercial, and we're right in the middle, and we were trying to match in with the neighborhood and actually take care of the flow on and off our property, which is not quite being done correctly at this time. And that's our Henderson erosion control project. All right, any questions? Doesn't look like any. We'll go to our Carlin Readiness Center, the one out in Elko County. This is replace our domestic water heater. So first we asked for the tank early on. It was a priority project, and now we're asking for state funding in order to replace domestic hot water heaters. A reminder, this is 80% state, 20% federal, and it's been about a little over 15 years, and they're at the end of their useful life. Needing to replace some of that equipment. All right, next one is drainage improvements, Las Vegas Readiness Center. This was constructed in 2007, this particular building in the site. We do have some existing drainage channel issues, and Chad was telling me right before this meeting, he goes, he's done this on drill weekends where the engineering units have been out there trying to fix some of the drainage issues we've had in there. And as you can tell from these fairly recent pictures, we still have some drainage issues out there. This would be a 50-50 split. We'd bring the federal dollars, and we'd need at least $57,000 from the state to complete this project. All right, our next project, going back up to Carlin. While these doors look very nice, the glass panel doors are not energy efficient. They reduce the overhead clearance just the way they're currently designed, and have not been reliable. They're over 15 years old, and the glass panels have proven to be very poor insulators, and we're looking basically to upgrade the system out there. They don't get as heavily used as the other overhead doors that we're looking at, but these do get used, and we do spend quite a bit of maintenance time and effort to make these work for us. So any questions on that, we'll go on to our next one. We're staying out in our Carlin site. This one is the water distribution that was installed without thrust blocks, and we've now encountering issues here 15 plus years later of some of the maintenance, and this is one of our maintenance folks out there working on some of the piping issues that are leaking. This is a pretty expensive endeavor to repair, but we know that we need to do this sooner rather than later. This is, once again, an 80% state, 20% federal project. All right. No questions. We'll go now. We'll stay out at Elko County. We do have a treatment plant out there, and we're spending over roughly $100,000 a year to operate that treatment plant. It does get used primarily during the summer months. In fact, the air guard was recently out there, and it's used, but it's not used as much as it can be. And so we're trying to keep the microbes and trying to keep the plant going as much as possible. We need some modifications to that treatment system and trying to upgrade that. This is just a reminder, 80% state, 20% federal supported request on this one. All right, any questions? We'll go to the next one. This is going back down to our North Las Vegas, Clark County facility. It is while we take pride in our facilities, and we try to build areas where the soldiers can have a little break area and do other stuff other than the actual training, and this is a request for a covered patio in some shade at our Las Vegas facility. This is a 50-50 split of the support there. All right. No questions. We'll go back to Elko County Readiness Center. All right, so this is a security fence addition for this force protection. We have, for the most part, not had any real concerns out there, but over the last couple of years, and in particular last month, we've had issues where folks have broken into our facilities. And this latest one is they broke into one of our facilities and trashed it pretty well and threw what they were saying is blood, but I haven't been confirmed. The FBI ended up investigating, and they actually not only broke into this facility, but they broke into a couple other facilities out there in Elko, and or in Carlin, and they eventually caught the individual. But we do not have a very secure front entryway to this, and so we're asking for some state funds in order to increase our security posture and build the fencing that's required to keep people off of this property. All right, any questions? We'll go on to our next one. This is our last one. This is the last one you get entertained with by the Office of the Military. All right, this is the actual picture of our floor there, and I think Chad, the last time he was here, talked about we will ban this type of color paint on flooring. We do not want this color paint at all. We don't want our floors painted. We grind it and go back to concrete that is easier to maintain. And this was built in 2007, this facility, but wear and tear and bad on our part that we actually painted the floor in the drill hall. And we need to get that ground up and put back just to our concrete. And we did that at Henderson. As I said, the Public Works Board has been very supportive of what we've done out in Henderson, and a beautiful floor out there. And now the soldiers that see this one go, how come we can't have that one, the 1970 building out there that you guys have done some great work out there? Why don't you clean this one up for us? So this is a 50-50 split, federal to state dollars. And just as I said earlier on, we are pretty successful at the end of each federal fiscal year of securing additional federal dollars. The problem that we have is trying to match up the state dollars when in a biennium. And we've already completed all of our CIP projects in a year and a half, and we have a half a year left and have federal dollars that we cannot match up with state dollars. And so we've talked with Ward and staff about some options there, but if we can get the additional state funds, in particular these projects here, we know we can match it up with our federal dollars. Penny, any questions? That concludes our brief.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Good afternoon. Okay, we're going to get started.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Kachiver, and I'm the administrator of the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. With me is Ross Armstrong, the administrator of Division of Child and Family Services, and Deena Schmidt, the administrator of Aging and Disability Services. And we have the buildings for the Department of Health and Human Services. We just KOTCHEVAR. So the Department of Health and Human Services promotes health and well-being of all Nevadans. We are made up of 5 divisions: Aging and Disabilities, Child and Family Services, Healthcare Financing and Policy, which is Nevada Medicaid, Public and Behavioral Health, and Welfare and Supportive Services. The 3 divisions that occupy state-owned buildings are the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, where we operate the state civil and forensic mental health hospitals, Deanie, Townsend, and Lakes Crossing in northern Nevada, and Ross and Neill in Stein in southern Nevada. Child and Family Services provides children's mental health services on the campuses of the Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services, Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services, and operates the juvenile justice facilities at Nevada Youth Training Center in Elko, Caliente Youth Center in Caliente, and Summit View Youth Center in Las Vegas. Sure. We were trying to be quick. The division. Aging and Disability Services operates the two state-owned regional centers for intellectual and developmental disabilities, Desert Regional in Las Vegas and Sierra Regional in northern Nevada. We provided some slides showing that we actually have a number of buildings that are on the statewide, or a number of projects on the statewide buildings. We're not going to go through them, but we do have a number of projects on the ADA statewide projects, the roofing projects, the statewide paving, fire and life safety. Our first department, ranked number 1, is the DHHS office building. In 2006, DHHS employees were located in the Kincaid building, and we're very grateful that you demolished it. But After we left the building, we began the Health and Human Services diaspora, where we were sprinkled into 14 locations in Carson City. And if you flip to the next slide, you can see where all of our Carson City locations are. We did a time study during a 4-week time period. The DHHS director, deputies, and administrators spent nearly 57 hours traveling between locations in Carson City just to conduct our business with each other and our sister agencies. In addition, the Office of Vital Records is located at our Technology Way, which is in the far right corner, the Technology Way office, and that does the birth and death records for all of the citizens. It's very inaccessible to the public, and it is not on any public transit lines. So we have asked for a new building to be constructed. This, I believe, is the planning dollars to construct a building to condense HHS into a single building located next to the Capitol complex along Roop Street between 5th Street and Little Lane. Our next project is for the DPBH, Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Hospital, which is Deanie, Townsend, to replace fire smoke dampers. The fire and smoke dampers have failed under inspection in March of 2011 and were found to be defective. They have been retrofitted, but they do need to be replaced. The hospital, the fire and smoke dampers have to be inspected every 6 years, and the hospital is certified by the Joint Commission. This falls under Life Safety Code, and so that violation would endanger our commission.
Excuse me, ma'am. Mr. Patrick, maybe you can answer this question, why this isn't sort of a fire life safety as opposed to a CIP, part of the life safety, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, normally our statewide program is focused on fire alarms and fire suppression, and not the smoke fire dampers.
Okay, thank you.
The next project is for our Summit View Youth Center. Oh yes, Ross Armstrong, Administrator for the Division of Child and Family Services. The next project is the Summit View Youth Center door controls. It's our juvenile correctional facility for our highest end offenders. In 2017, we had a CIP to replace about 20% of the door locks and control mechanisms. This is a continuation of that CIP and focuses on the wiring and the actual controls for those doors to open and close at the facility.
Deena Schmidt, Administrator for Aging and Disability Services. The next project is our Desert Regional Center building, 1391. This is an expansion of our lobby in order to make this a secure location. As you can see from the picture right now, anybody can enter and go multiple directions within the building, and there's no security mechanism in place. And so this is just to create a barrier between the staff and the public.
Our next project is for the Northern Nevada Hospital Deanie Townsend to install the panic alarm system. This is a continuation of Project 99C21 from involving the pen scan system, and it's to help protect staff and clients from extended periods of isolated dangers where they would be able to summon aid if they needed it. Our next project is for Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health to replace the single pane windows in buildings 1, 2, 3A, and 6. The exterior windows are metal frame and single pane. Some are also wood frames that are rotted. The windows leak water and air, affecting the heating and cooling of the building, as well as client and staff health.
Ross Armstrong with DCFS again. Our next project is at the Caliente Youth Center, which is our juvenile correctional facility in Caliente, Nevada. And this would replace the electrical upgrade for the school, the older part of the school building, and then the facilities administration building, which houses all of the administration and mental health. So we have issues with rusty conduits, and it's just old and getting to the end of its useful life. So it includes transformers and grounding as well. The next project is also at the Caliente Youth Center. It's to replace the gymnasium and dining area floors. The floor in the gym is creating a hazard. It's sticky. You can imagine playing basketball on a sticky, old and holey gym floor. So both these areas, the dining and the exercise, are important parts of and rights that our youth have at our facility. And so this would replace both of those floors to help us ensure those rights are protected.
Our next project is for the Ross and Neill Hospital for the patient restroom renovations. There are 14 patient restrooms at Ross and Neill, and they need anti-ligature lighting, stainless steel toilets, sinks, and also to replace some ceilings in the showers and wood lockers and plumbing. Because of the nature of the patients that are served at Ross and Neill, many of them can be placed on suicide watch, and so it's very important that we have tamper-resistant and anti-ligature fixtures to prevent injury.
Ross Armstrong again with the Division of Child and Family Services. Our next project is to install a perimeter fence around our Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services. The Oasis buildings that you see in the picture house children who need intensive mental health services but short of hospitalization. It abuts busy Charleston Boulevard in Las Vegas, and so the perimeter fence would help increase the security and safety of the youth we serve there.
Julie Kachiver, the next project is the Public and Behavioral Health and Noms Rooftop Multi-Zone Unit Replacement. This is to replace the HVAC rooftop units located on 2A, 8A, 8B, and 8C. They have reached the end of their useful life, particularly due to harsh conditions and wear and tear. The compressors also use the R22 ozone depleting gas that's no longer manufactured and will have to be phased out.
Ross Armstrong, the next project is at our Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services facility, where it's our treatment facility for youth with mental health issues near the University of Nevada, Reno campus. This replaces the central plant and temperature control. We're currently experiencing valves failing, and so this would help with the climate control of the facility.
Our next project is for the boiler plant renovations for the NAMS buildings 1, 2, and 5. The existing outside boilers have exceeded their expected useful life and need to be replaced with a lasting solution. They're not energy efficient, and it makes the buildings vulnerable to extreme, unacceptable temperature situations.
Deena Schmidt, Aging and Disability Services. The next project is a multi-purpose sports court shade structure. At Desert Regional, we do house about 41 residents who reside there on the campus. And we were able to, a few years back, get a donation to build this sports structure. And this project is to create a shade structure over that so that it can actually be utilized during the day. One of the recent findings we've had in an audit from CMS has to do with our ability to provide integrated and more outdoor activities for our residents there, and so that's the purpose of this, is to make this more usable, especially in the heat with Las Vegas, as we all needed to have the shade and fully utilize the donation that we were given to build this structure.
Julie Kachiver. The next project is for window replacement at Deanie Townsend in Building 1 to upgrade approximately 250 window units with dual pane high efficiency units. The windows are original single pane construction and metal frames. They're drafty, not energy efficient, and they don't properly seal and leak if you can even open them.
The next project is back at the Caliente Youth Center and is a chiller replacement. The air chiller and pumping system are at the end of their useful life, so this would replace them for the administration building, which houses the computer networks and phone systems that are sensitive to climate changes.
Deena Schmidt. So the last ADSD project we have is a replacement of an emergency generator. The project replaces a generator, the transfer switch, conduits, wiring, and the concrete pad. The existing military surplus generator, which was manufactured in 1951, is at the end of its useful life.
Julie Kachiver, the next project is a central plant and control system renovation at Deanie, Townsend to replace the existing chiller system serving the hospital. The current system was installed in 2000 and has reached the end of its expected and useful life and needs to be replaced.
Ross Armstrong with Division of Child and Family Services. The next project is window replacement at our Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services facility. This is again where we have some youth living 24/7, and it was identified as needing replacement in the facility condition analysis that was completed in 2017.
Our next project is for the SNAMS Building 4 HVAC system renovation. This will replace the makeup air unit and other units in the Building 4 in the kitchen at Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health. It's approximately 15 years old, nearing the end of its useful life, and has failed numerous times, which is difficult in the summer in the kitchen in Las Vegas. Our next project is an electrical upgrade for our Deanie Townsend Hospital to complete a replacement of the cabling. There is new and old volt cabling spliced in together based on where the remodels have happened over the year, and the transformers, cables, and panels have outlived their useful life and are in need of replacement.
Ross Armstrong, the next project is a plumbing replacement at our Southern Nevada Child and Adolescent Services. The plumbing in Building 7 is the original that was built back in 1974. The biggest issue here is it's a plumbing system that also feeds into the HVAC system, which is an issue in Las Vegas. The next project is back out at the Caliente Youth Center and is a replacement of the irrigation main. It's galvanized metal pipe and is starting to fail at a more frequent rate, which, as we talked about earlier, has issues with the conduits and rusting in the electrical. And so it's beyond its useful life and needs to be replaced at the youth center.
Julie Kachiver, the next project is for a flooring replacement in our Southern Nevada Hospital to replace the existing and vinyl composite tile in carpet in buildings 1, 2, and 6. They are old and they've been sort of patched where they can, but they're at the point where they can no longer be effectively patched and cleaned.
Ross Armstrong, the next project is back out at Caliente Youth Center and is to install a sanitary sewer grinder. Based on the nature of the facility, the youth there will frequently flush inappropriate items to disrupt the program, and so that is causing issues down the line. So we're asking to have that installed, mostly so we don't have to show you this picture ever again. But that is the request out at the Caliente Youth Center.
Julie Kachiver, our next project is flooring replacement in Southern Nevada in Units 3 and 3A to replace carpet and vinyl flooring. The existing flooring is damaged and you can see has been patched, but can't successfully really be patched and repaired any longer. Our next project is to replace interior lighting from the Lakes Crossing Center. To replace it, it has old fluorescent lighting to replace with new detention-grade LED light fixtures to provide a safe environment for that forensic facility.
The next project is at the Caliente Youth Center and is an exterior insulation system and window replacement. Currently, there's the single pane windows or what have been replaced with plexiglass. And so this project helps with the overall energy efficiency of the building as well as the comfort of the children we serve there.
Our next project is for HVAC system renovation in Noms Admin Building 1 at the Deanie Townsend Hospital. It's a continuation of Project 07C30 to update and replace some of the induction units and all the controls and associated valves and piping systems. Some of the installation of the new chiller and recent boiler system in that project has created a temperature imbalance in the part that has been renovated and the part that hasn't been. Our next project is also at Deanie Townsend for an electrical upgrade to upgrade the electrical system in Building 1. The building was constructed before there was a high demand for electrical use services, such as computers and various other devices. And the buildings have met and exceeded their electrical loads. So there's been a number of safety issues, including non-functioning outlets in bathrooms near sinks, missing covers, and painted receptacles that need to be replaced and repaired. And that concludes our presentation from Health and Human Services.
Thank you very much. And even with slowing down, you whipped right through that. We appreciate it. Are there any questions from the board? Thank you very much. Ready when you are.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Amy McKinney. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Motor Vehicles, and I'm here today to present on our Reno capital improvement project for a new Reno office. The original project was approved during the 2017 session, and we come before you today to update you on the status of this project. We've completed the advanced planning through design development, and the project's going to be bonded over 20 years. Due to recent unanticipated and unprecedented construction costs and inflation, the cost of the project has increased since it was originally estimated. We've included in our presentation today 2 slides. This slide shows the original design, anticipated design of the facility, which included 3 separate buildings, one for our CDL operation, one for emission control, and one for our main DMV. The total square footage on this was a little over 57,000 square feet. Through working with the architects, once we realized that the costs were going to be higher than anticipated, we did some improvements to the design, and we reduced the actual overall project footprint by a little over 3,000 square feet without compromising either the space or the consideration for future growth. So as you can see, we actually combined the emissions and the CDL buildings into one facility rather than 2 separate buildings. So as a result of the higher cost, the fixtures, furniture, and equipment, as well as the cost of paving for our CDL parking lot and landscaping are being deferred to the 2019 CIP budget. I'd like to iterate that this project is not funded through general fund dollars. It's highway fund, 89.9%, and then 10.1% from our self-funded pollution control budget for the emission program. So we're here today to request the remaining funds in the amount of $8.66 million that are needed to complete the project, and this was discussed at IFC in June of this year. Our targeted move-in date will be Nevada Day weekend of 2020. This will allow us a 3-day holiday weekend so that we don't have any interruption in service to the citizens of our state, so that we can close the old Reno location on Friday and then open in the new one on, we'll close the current Reno facility on Thursday at the close of business and open in the new location on Monday morning to the public. And then I've included the slides from the State Public Works projects that breaks down the total cost. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first question would be, were the funds being requested today originally included in the previously funded request? And the second question would be, with the reduction in the square footage, how much were we able to save as a result of the reprogramming?
The Ward Patrick for the record. The scope of the project is to build a DMV and have the CDL course and the 2 ancillary buildings. And as was mentioned, those 2 ancillary buildings were combined, which reduced the square footage. So the essence of the scope is completed. So, but there'll obviously be this will be additional funding that will be the highway fund. So all of the remaining all the original funds will be spent. In addition to that, I would point out that the project is, these are items that are planned to become later in the project, and so to keep inflation from impacting the project will be bid and awarded, and then later receive the additional funds.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. I'm just trying to understand what was the dollar value that the project was over budget when the estimates came in? What did we save from that budget in the consolidation of the two buildings? And was that delta the 8.6 million referenced here?
The delta is the needed funds, Board Patrick, for the record, is the needed funds for the resulting project. It was recognized early in the design process that the project was going to be out of budget. And so there was a big effort with I think Amy referenced some of these items, the big effort with the design team and the using agency with our public works project managers to get it in budget. So there was no effort made to identify if the project proceeded as originally specified, what would it cost? So we can't provide a delta.
Okay, thank you. I'm clear now. So this portion here, the 8.6, was something was going to be presented at a later date anyways. It's not a portion of scope that was missed in a previous estimate. Is that correct?
Right. We're being very proactive, and so this is the remainder of the project that needs to be funded.
Okay, thank you. I'm clear. Appreciate it. Member Stewart.
Mr. Patrick, can you tell us if you remember how much of this original funding was from the Highway Fund last cycle? I remember that a large portion of this was from the Highway Fund, but do you remember how much that was?
Board Patrick, for the record, we have a copy of the book here. We can get that to you here in 1 second. Board Patrick, for the record, Kent Lefevre on top of this item. This project is 88% highway funded, 12% emissions funding, but all other funding, no state bonding, no state general fund. The total for the project was $42,016,797, approximately $42 million.
So just a follow-up question. At this point, we're approaching about 40 million out of the Highway Fund for this DMV facility? Okay.
Ward Patrick, for the record. So the state is very sensitive to the needs of the Highway Fund. As it turns out, the taxes for fuel have not been raised in quite some time, so there's a lot of pressure on the Highway Fund. This project was developed as a financing instrument where the Highway Fund is going to be paying annual payments to pay off a financing arrangement for information. Thank you.
Thank you. Based on the questions you were asking, Mr. Chairman, the back and forth, I'm not sure I'm entirely clear, so I'm going to try to ask it a little different way. So this scope of work, the commercial driver's course and the landscaping, that was or was not in the original scope of the project?
Ward Patrick, for the record, the CDL course and the landscaping was all part of the original project.
Okay, and this was what was valued engineer out to be able to proceed?
Correct. These were the items that were going to occur later in the project to enable us to award the project and then incorporate these items at a later date.
Thank you.
Just one follow-up question. Has this been a general practice to use highway funds for DMV facilities, or do you know any of the history on that, Mr. Patrick?
Ward Patrick, for the record, correct. The DMVs utilize highway funds for all the CIP projects. So you'll see later today, Mr. Johnson will be submitting projects to improve the DMVs for maintenance projects. Those are anticipated to be highway funded. We recently built the DMV down in Southern Nevada on East Sahara, and that was financed in a similar manner as the South Reno DMV and was highway funded.
Member Bentley, for the record, I might have missed something, but why do we have a $2 million construction and a $2.5 million contingency fund?
Ward Patrick, for the record, that's a great question, Clint. Member Bentley, we're looking at being able to not have this project be subject to more construction inflation. So this request is going to add additional contingency to the contingency we have. So this new money will be available and are on or about July of 2019. We're planning on bidding this project in February. You have a handout there. The notice to proceed is supposed to be in May, implying that we're bidding this in February, March. And then these are the parts of the project that won't be needed in the first month of the project, but that contingency will be needed to complete the project. So that contingency is for is helping to assure the first 42 million of the project goes successfully.
I'm sorry to beat this dead horse, but I still need to understand, what was the percentage that the project came in over budget? I'm trying to get an understanding of, we had an estimate, it went to bid, the bid came in at X, and the delta between the two was what, and that represented what percentage?
Ward Patrick, for the record, there was no bid. This is still under design. But there was an architectural estimate that showed that we don't have enough money. And it was more of a qualitative review at the time. And so we recognized we needed to come to the table and figure out what was needed to provide the space they need for growth and the long-term needs. So the review was more qualitative, that led us to the conclusion that we needed to, say, value engineer or / optimize the scope of the project and figure out what, not necessarily minimum amount, but what amount would be left to fund in order to meet the long-term needs of the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Thank you. So do we know whether the original project estimate from the State Public Works Division was inaccurate, or whether the design was outside of the estimate? And what I'm trying to say is, we got an architect's estimate against a State Public Works Division estimate, and I'm understanding there's a delta between the two. So why doesn't the designer just design it to the estimate, as opposed to talking about, I guess I'm trying to understand whether this is hyperinflation or this is over design, and I'm not clear.
It's certainly not over-designed. The square footage is lower. We've recently completed design and construction again in Las Vegas. So the DMV comes to the table very proactive on this process, understanding their programmatic needs. I would point out that this project had original planning done in out of the 2011 session, some schematic design. We normally, on a project of this size, we would normally do design, say out of the 17 CIP, and then do a subsequent out of the 19 CIP. And it was chosen that we would do all the planning here for this project, schematics, design development, construction documents, and the construction out of the same project. And so normally, we would defer construction so we have a better estimate going into the construction timeframe. That's kind of point A, what would normally happen. And then point B here regarding inflation, we underestimated the dollars per square foot of the building, and we've underestimated the months to construction. And so there's a pricing impact and an inflationary impact that wasn't accounted for on the project.
Okay, thank you. Member Tiberti.
Or Tito Tiberti for the record. Does this any way compare with the one we toured on Sahara in Las Vegas? My question, if it does, just broad-based thought process, like what was that square footage and what is this square footage? What did that cost a square foot? What does this cost square foot? I mean, is there any similarity that we could just go by those two things to kind of bring this to head here?
Ward Patrick for the record. And that was, thank you, Tito. That was the trap we fell in. This program is very close to the program at the East Sahara. And of course, that project occurred years before, and we hadn't had this preliminary design work to establish a good number to go into construction with. So we would have to get back to you on what that costs per square foot, but the point would be that would be years before this project was funded. And so we had to take a leap of faith and using architectural engineering judgment about that pricing that was put in this document, instead of using what we used was the construction management at risk process to develop the accurate pricing.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, or members of the board, excuse me. For the record, I'm Patrick Cates, Director of Administration. I want to present to you today just a brief overview of the department, and then I'll go into our number one priority, and then I will turn it over to Ward Patrick. So the Department of Administration consists of several divisions. We primarily provide services to other state agencies. We have administrative services that provides fiscal services to state agencies, enterprise IT services, fleet services, grants, hearings and appeals, victims of crime, human resource management, the library, archives, and public records division, public works, purchasing, and risk management. And our number one project, the Knowledge and Innovation Center, is a project for the Library, Archives, and Public Records Division. The Nevada State Library, Archives, and Public Records Division provides comprehensive government information services to state and local government and Nevada citizens through relevant and efficient library, archives, and record management services. I had a YouTube video, I'm not going to play that for the sake of time. Really, their main functions are to provide professional reference and research services for their collections. They serve as research information needs for state agencies and statewide library and literacy communities. They administer federal grants and state funds for libraries statewide. They have a coordinating role. They set standards and regulations for libraries. And they're custodians of the historical records of the territory and state government going back to 1851. They also administer the state records program. They establish records retention schedules, provide records consultation to state and local governments. And that also fits in with the archives. So the next slide gives you an overview of where the library is located. You can see it's circled in red in the middle of that slide. That is on Stewart Street, and you can see it is directly adjacent to the state capitol, which is on the left, and you can see all the trees around the state capitol there. And directly to the south is the Supreme Court. So it is very central, right in the middle of the state capitol grounds. This is a view of the building from the east, looking towards the Capitol on Stewart Street. That's the lobby. And this is just another view to give you a sense of the exterior of the building and what it looks like. The history of the Library and Archives building, it was designed in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was commissioned and opened in 1992. It's approximately 130 square feet. It is a landmark building, very recognizable in the heart of the state capitol complex. And it was the first building specifically designed to host the library and archives. And it also included training and conference rooms. And when it was originally built, it was entirely for the Library and Archives Division. They occupied the whole building, and there was a lot of public space, and a lot of agencies came in for training and events. It was used pretty extensively when it was first opened. And then the economic downturn, hit state service pretty heavily, and it also hit the Library and Archives programs. The training and conference rooms were closed. The south wing of the building was converted into state offices and cubicle farms for other agencies. So spaces that used to be public spaces were put behind secured locked doors for like IT staff doing sensitive work and having access to data. So a large portion of the building got closed to the public. The State Library and Archives Division suffered suffered. They had staffing decreases and program reductions, and they reduced the operating hours of the library and the archives. It was a decade of stagnation of programs and diminution of their purpose and relevancy to state government. After 25 years since its opening, approximately, and 10 years since the Great Recession, it's time for a refresh and a rebirth in the Nevada State Library and Archives building. And I just want to say, you know, having spent the last 2 days listening to all these requests from agencies and a lot of very practical and critical things that they need just to shore up existing infrastructure, I see this as really an aspirational project for the state, and I'll get into why in a moment. The building is definitely due for a refresh, but I think we have a unique opportunity to really make this building a catalyst for change in state government, to really level up the workforce of the state, to be innovative and increase productivity. It's a great asset that the state has right next to the Capitol, and it's not being utilized to its full potential today. So, what do we want this library to become? You can see an overall floor plan of the ground floor of the building. If you fund this, we will hope this will become the Nevada Knowledge and Innovation Center for Better Government, with a focus on government and improving government services. Just to basically give you a little outline of this floor plan, if you can see over to the right-hand side, the sort of, I don't know what you would call that, teal-colored floor space. That is the ground floor of the library today. That's the main library floor. Today, that library floor is covered with stacks of books, microfiche, a lot of material that is fairly lightly used. As part of this project, most of those collections would be put into closed storage. They would still be available to patrons. They would be retrieved by staff and stored in the basement as part of this project. And instead, we would replace it with meeting rooms, collaborative workspace, research space, so that it's a functional space for state agencies to come and work and do research. The green portion is the lobby that you saw looking at the pictures I showed you earlier. That space today is a very lightly used space. People use it to transit from the Capitol and back. Not a lot goes on there. Occasionally there's ceremonies. We would do some pretty significant renovations in there. The orange space on the right-hand side currently is housing our ERP project office. That's part of the library itself. And then the orange space to the left is an outdoor patio, which currently has nothing in it and it's never used for anything. It's a large, nice paved patio area and it's not used at all. The yellow portion is actually the ground floor of what was originally the state printing office. It's one of the oldest buildings on the Capitol grounds, and when they built the library, they incorporated that building around it. And if you excuse me, I really need to get some water, excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. On the far left-hand side, the blue area, currently those are offices. Those are offices for enterprise IT services. They're behind secured doors. The Office of Cyber Security is in there, so it's a secure area. And all of the white space, those are meeting rooms. We did for quite a while have staff in some of those locations that we've recently moved out so that those rooms would be available to the public. Another thing I just wanted to point out very quickly, you saw the request from Health and Human Services to build a new Health and Human Services building. And we also have a request that we'll get to for the Department of Administration to build a new building. And if I could just jump back for a second to this slide here. So everything to the left-hand side of Stewart Street, where that where the red marks are, all of that is state property, all the way down to DMV. And the master plan calls for buildings to be built in that space. That's why we tore down the Kincaid building in preparation for building new buildings. And you can see, as you saw from Public Safety and DHHS, that you have agencies scattered all over the city. And I think as we consolidate that and build new buildings, having this facility right here centrally located will impact how we design those buildings and may reduce the size of those buildings possibly, and it would certainly impact like meeting rooms, meeting space, that sort of thing that we would design into it with having this resource right there on hand. So, the Nevada Knowledge and Innovation Center for Better Government, or the KIC, as we're calling it. So the purpose of the project is to foster a state culture of innovation and excellence across agencies to make government better as follows. To restore the vitality of the state library and archives to make it a 21st century library. And what that means, a 21st century library, all of the library community nationwide is going this direction. It's still about books, it's still about research, but they are redesigning their libraries to make them spaces for collaboration, for incubators, for people to come in and level up their skills in an informal way. They really have become part of workforce development across the nation. And the state library really has a particular focus on state agencies, so it's a really great opportunity to recast their programming to focus on development of the state workforce for state employees. We need to optimize the accessibility of Nevada's unique information resources and knowledge. What that means is we need to make more material available online. We do have different resources, but we've been pretty slow in digitizing those. That'll make a lot of the resources that they have available to people, both in the library and without. We need to develop state employee capability and effectiveness. We need to equip state employees with 21st century skills and abilities. And we need to facilitate a 21st century workplace. We want this building to be a showcase of state-of-the-art technology, video conferencing, and collaborative workspace. We want to facilitate lean state government, and that means we want to foster a culture of process improvement. And, Lean Six Sigma is one method of process improvement that's been around for decades and is widely practiced in the private sector. It's certainly not the only discipline for process improvement, but it is widely practiced, and it is a practice that is spreading among states, among my peers. They're all trying to foster this culture in a very systematic way to get employees to think outside the box, not think in terms of just doing things the way they've always done them, but to really get them to work collaboratively and to figure out how to make their processes better and improve it. This building, this programming, it really will be a catalyst and a symbol, and it will give Nevada a competitive edge in engaging employees and recruiting and retaining employees. It will also attract the interest of the vendor community and get them to participate in this. We really want to facilitate public-private partnerships in this building to do demonstration projects, proof of concepts, and process improvement activities. Particularly the IT vendor community. We have very strong relationships with a lot of really cutting-edge technology companies in the state, and they make a pretty good living off of the contracts that they have with the state. And I have been, since we've been working on this project, engaging those companies in informal conversations about supporting this project, and they've been very receptive. And I think there's a great possibility of monetary contributions, of participation, to really allow state employees and the vendor community to work in a thoughtful way to try to improve government without the confines of strict RFP processes. We can do a lot of things with demonstration projects, proof of concept, where we can just work with vendors and explore ideas that can really be impactful to the state going forward. And this facility is meant to be a resource for all state agencies. KIC partners. So this is a library and archives project, but the facility will be used by several different partners. The library, state library itself will provide staffing, informal training opportunities, research assistance, and overall management of the facility programming. Human resources, they are already responsible for employee development training. They have a manager's academy and a certified manager's program. Those are our sort of flagship programs that we offer in the state. Some of that training already occurs in the building, but they're very limited on space, and it's very difficult to level up those trainings with the amount of space that's currently available. They basically have one small training room that they do most of that training for today. State purchasing, talked about engaging in the vendor community. State purchasing has requirements to train state employees, as does the grants office, and frankly, most of the divisions in the Department of Administration have statutory requirements to provide training to state agencies. But as regards state purchasing, we want to use it to host vendor events. We get particularly IT vendors that will go around to agency and try to do one-off deals with each agency, which I don't blame them, that's fair. But I think we could really leverage that by inviting them in and having all the agencies come to one place and see if we can enter into more enterprise agreements that are statewide. We have done some of that. We recently did Office 365 as an enterprise agreement, got really good pricing as a result of our ability to collectively offer the entire state business and not one agency. The vendor community, I've spoke about that. Smart 21. Smart 21 is our ERP project. We are about to launch the RFP for that to replace the state's 20-year-old financial and HR systems. That office is already located here. They are already beginning a process improvement discipline, and we do hope that that office will eventually evolve into a statewide office of project management, and they'll have a lot of activity in this building. I skipped higher ed. So higher ed, we've been in discussions with officials at higher ed about how higher ed can partner with the state for workforce development for state employees. We view them as a source of interns. We want to have a lot of interns in this building to work on projects for agencies. And we are also exploring state training certification programs. And we're in discussions right now about a certification program for financial management for state government. The HR working group. HR working group was commissioned by Governor Sandoval to look at workforce development for state government. And that group continues to meet. We have a draft report we're working on. They've looked at a wide variety of initiatives, and they are very supportive of this project. And again, other agencies that we've talked to are really excited by the opportunity to have this resource. Agencies, even big ones, they are limited in their training space, meeting space. This room is an example. When we created the video conferencing capabilities and what you see here today, demand has really outstripped supply. This room is used week in and week out by a multitude of agencies that were just clamoring to get some space to have meetings. So you can see this all becomes a complex. You've got this room, you've got the library and archives over there with other meeting rooms, all connected together with video conferencing and technology. I think there's a lot of demand for this among state agencies. And I just want to show you a few slides. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just wanted to give you some of the renderings that were done by the architect. This is a lobby area. As I said, right now it's very stale and empty. If you walk through there, you're not going to see much of anything. Information booths, places for people to sit and work. That black object on the wall with the state seal is intended to be a very large LED display that we could put programming on. This is looking the other direction towards the library. You can see the addition of some stairs on the right-hand side, which would allow direct access to the second floor. It doesn't exist today. You have to go like deep in the building and upstairs to get up there. The space off to the left, like I said, right now, that's our project office. We want a food service in there so that as people come here to do activities, they've got somewhere to grab some food. We've taken to calling that the Governor's Grill. This is some renderings of the space that is currently the ground floor of the library. And it's all that collaborative workspace and meeting rooms that I mentioned. Just to give you some visualizations of what that looks like. This picture is multi-purpose conference room. That was on the south side, the left-hand side of the big diagram that I showed you. It's currently offices. We can have a big conference room in there that I think the seating for it is about as big as this room. So we'd have another additional space for agencies to hold events. And on the second floor, and just keep in mind, this is a big building. This project really only impacts the ground floor and the north end of the second floor. So the second floor, you can see in the diagram, the big yellow area, that is the state archives. That would not change. We wouldn't change that at all. But all of the space you see to the right of that, the kind of blue and orange and green spaces, this is different types of collaborative work areas, meeting rooms. Today, that is where we house our government documents collection. And there's, it's lined with shelves and federal documents. We are a federal document repository, but frankly, the federal government doesn't produce paper documents anymore. So the collection that is in there is static. And again, we wouldn't get rid of that collection. We'd put it in closed storage. We've had some discussions about transferring it elsewhere. UNR, for instance, collects federal documents as well, but we think the space could be much better utilized as functional collaborative space. And just a little bit of renderings of what that space looks like. And with that, that's what I have for this project. I just love that picture. You know, my office is basically from this perspective, and stepping out there at night to get in my car when the lobby's lit up and the Capitol Dome behind it and the mountains, it's quite striking. And as I said, it's a unique resource that the state has. It's time to be refreshed, so let's refresh it in a smart way that can leverage what we have to make government better and make it more efficient. Any questions?
Could you tell us a little bit about the private funding? I see it's a 50-50 split proposal. Can you tell us a little bit about private funding?
Thank you for the question. So, as I said, we really want this to be a public-private partnership. We don't have any firm commitments for funding at this time. We wanted to be able to bring forward a project and show that there is some state commitment. I have had a lot of discussions with interested parties, companies who have made investments in things like this in the past. In fact, pieces of this presentation, there's a big package that we're putting together with the architect that worked on this with us, and we're going to really start hitting the ground running, trying to secure donations to make this happen. And it's a lot of money. We don't have the mechanisms to raise money the way say ENCHI does. But I think there's enough interest on this that I think we have a really good shot at raising this money.
Thank you, Director.
Chairman, fellow board members, whoa, that's really, really loud. I'm Robbie Burgess. I'm the administrator for Department of Administration Fleet Services, and that's ROBBIE. I'm here to present today a facility that has started last biennium. We've got the permission to do the design and schematic for our Southern Nevada Fleet Services facility. This facility is located just east of the Grant Sawyer facility in North Las Vegas, and it encompasses approximately about 6,150 square feet. Go ahead. Just to give you guys an idea of who Fleet Services is, what we do is we're the division that provides safe and environmentally friendly and cost-effective ground transportation solutions for all state employees. Go ahead. Services provided, we have a total of 1,133 vehicles in the state of Nevada for fleet services. Of those, there's 585 vehicles in Southern Nevada and Las Vegas. And of that, we have 37 of those that are in our short-term rental operation. We operate, we're a maintenance facility and a rental facility, especially in our Las Vegas location on La Cienega, which is just south of the airport. Last fiscal 18, we increased our Las Vegas vehicles by 104 units, or 104 vehicles. And currently our shop tech to vehicle ratio is about 98:1. So for every mechanic, I have 100 vehicles that he has to work on. Go ahead. Some of the services that Fleet Services provides, we provide maintenance, long-range fleet planning for all agencies, all state agencies, the acquisition and disposal of vehicles, vehicle reporting, fueling and cleaning. We also do accident subrogation at our facilities along with risk management. We help them out as well. Go ahead. Our division philosophy is to provide state agencies modern solutions to solve their transportation needs in a cost-effective way to utilize technology, strategic fleet management, and the industry best practices to enhance our customer experience. Go ahead. The division partners closely with the private sector to ensure that we provide our customers very efficient care. We take care of the majority of our vehicles, but on occasion we do have to outsource a lot of our maintenance that we do on vehicles, such as warranty work. We don't perform any warranty work. When the manufacturers are responsible for it, we don't need the state to pay for it. Go ahead. We provide all types of vehicles, sedans, sport utilities, police vehicles for parole and probation, National Transportation Authority, light-duty trucks, heavy-duty trucks, and vans as well. Currently, Fleet Services encompasses about 15 staff statewide. Like I said, we're servicing with just our fleet vehicles, 1,133 vehicles. 585 of those are in Las Vegas. Currently, Clark County, the state workforce is just over 8,000 employees, which encompasses about 45% of the state workforce. We currently have 3 facilities, one here in Carson City, Reno, and Las Vegas. And the new Las Vegas that we're proposing, like I said, is next to Grant Sawyer, which is way up north. Fleet service miles traveled, state vehicles did about 10.3 million miles last fiscal year. Our short-term rental days, about 12,400 daily rentals. And then our vehicle requests were about 3,250 work orders that we completed on state vehicles. Here, I just wanted to, like I said, we've gone into we are approved for the schematic design phase, and these are some of the views of the proposed facility next to Grant Sawyer. This is looking from the southwest, looking northeast. The Grant Sawyer facility would be to the left of that. And this is likewise looking from the northwest, looking southeast. This showing the entryway and the entire shop area. Go ahead. There's another view of the facility that we're proposing for. And another view looking from the southeast. And here's a site aerial view of the proposal. You can see the Grant Sawyer facility in the upper right-hand corner, and a large parking lot that separates Grant Sawyer from the proposed fleet service facility. And that's it, gentlemen, if you have any questions.
Thank you. The only question I had is it looked like there's a small solar farm on the property, but I didn't see it in the budget for that, and I just wondered if I was missing something.
Ward Patrick, for the record, that's an existing 50 kW system that will remain in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Kintop. I'm the administrator for the Nevada State Library and Archives. And I'm kind of the resident memory of state government. I've been there at the State Archives for 35 years. And so we are the agency that takes care of the state's historical records and things that need to be kept for a long period of time. We've got several laws that require all the records from the governor's office come over at the end of their terms, and the Secretary of State's records come over after a certain period of time. Other agencies have records retention schedules that require these records that are long-term in nature and document the decision-making process in the state of Nevada, or just celebratory things that are just kind of fun to look at, and commemorative articles. And so we maintain that in the building right behind the Capitol here. And we have for 25 years now. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep up with the load of records that are coming in. And I know that for the past 20 years, we've been talking about how paper is going away and digital records are going to become the thing that we're going to be doing, but we still deal with a lot of paper records, a lot of paper records. And so we're proposing to complete the building. Next slide, please. The building was completed in 1992, and what we had done is in the archive storage space is half the space was compact shelving, high density shelving, and the other side was traditional shelving, because we tried to save money even back 25 years ago when we tried to build it. And that was kind of our record center at the time, and the archives all fit into, it didn't even quite fit into the other side, and we thought that we had to design the building for 25 years of growth, and now the growth is catching up with us, and we're going to have to put compact shelving on the other side. We have a record center in the downstairs of that building that holds about 41,000 boxes of records. Not all these records come to the archives. Only about 4% of all records created by state government come to the archives. Otherwise, they're kept for legal terms, financial reasons, basically Criminal justice records get kept for the lifetime of an individual, assuming that they're going to be committing crimes late in life. And so they need to be kept for a long period of time. Once we expanded that in 1997, we moved the things that will eventually transfer to the archives up to the archives. Next slide. So what used to be the record center when we first moved in is now, those are boxes that will be transferred to the archives probably in the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, next slide. So we want to put the compact shelving on both sides of the aisle. Basically, it will give us room for growth for probably another 25 years based on the growth that we have right now and the fact that records are diminishing because of electronic records. We're not printing, unless you print them out, they don't exist on paper. And so we're going to do that on both sides of the aisle. Simply, it's movable shelving, high density movable shelving, rolls on tracks, it's motorized, it's very simple to use. We had our first compact shelving installed in the old state archives, which was just behind the stone building behind the Capitol here, the old state printing office, and we had that done in 1986 and have had very good luck with that product. Next one. So basically what used to be regular shelving that's the layout for the storage, and it will basically increase our storage by probably about almost 18,000 boxes of records. Okay. Simply put, we changed from this, next slide, to this. So we basically double the size of storage on that side of the aisle. Increased storage, it handles the any kind of format that we have. Those are, for many, many years, the state was supposed to keep its official records in well-bound books, and that's where we keep them in there. You should come by and take a look sometime. It's really interesting. And so we're going to continue to preserve Nevada's documentary heritage we'll be set for another 25 years, and by that time, maybe we will be all digital by that time. Is there any questions?
Thank you, sir.
But I'm not finished yet. Oh. Jeff Kintop, administrator for the State Library and Archives. Yep. Okay. Once we put the record center in the basement of our building over there, we could accommodate 41,000 boxes of records. And we started thinking, but people were saying, but there's a lot of government located in southern Nevada, and what are we doing for them? So we started to plan to put a facility in southern Nevada by the mid-1990s. And we did some site studies right after the Grant Sawyer building was built, and nothing really came of it until we had the Division of Audit basically said, they said 41% of state government is in southern Nevada. And it's impractical for them to ship their records up here for storage, because if they need those records retrieved, we have to send them back via mail. And we have a lot of confidential information that we just can't be shipping back and forth. And so we've been looking for a facility since about 2002. Our project was approved in 2007 to build a state record center down in Las Vegas, And that's when we had the economic downturn, and it was either lose 12 employees or give up our CIP. So we gave up our CIP. So we introduced it again in 2015, this time with partners, with the Department of Agriculture and the Purchasing Division, and in 2017, and then those partners basically found other facilities, so now we're by ourselves asking for this again, this planning money. So that's another picture of our state record centers. It's what we're kind of proposing there. It keeps records in safe, secure storage. Everything is computer retrievable. Everything can be found. It's better than having things in your own filing cabinet in your office, because we can locate those things right away. Next slide. This was going to be planned to be in the Nevada's West Sahara complex, behind the Metro building, which I think the Department of Agriculture now has. And so just behind the parking lot there's that space is available, and it could fit the footprint of the building that we were planning. So the top left picture, or the top right picture, shows the record storage area and what we were planning on doing. And this is what the artist's concept was of the building, with a loading dock, and it'll be temperature controlled because the documents need to be protected. Right now, they're taking up office space and rental space. And people are renting, rental units to store their records, and it's not a good environment for them. And in 2002, it said that the record center in Southern Nevada would free up about $560,000 annually in existing office space, self-storage units, and commercial storage costs. Well, I checked my building rent in 2002, and even though in 2011 we gave up about a third of the building, I'm still paying the same rent. So that rent went up since 2002, and so I'm going to say that it'll save over $1 million annually. We don't have a study on that, but just based on the cost of that. So it'll basically save the state money in the long run. Any questions?
Tito Taberti for the record. The Southern Nevada building, did I hear you say anything about a price to build it? Land and building, or?
For the record, Jeff Kintop, this is just the planning stage. This is for planning and design. The original building that we were planning with partners was going to be about 30, let's see. Okay, the construction cost would be about $7.8 million to build. We were going to use a steel building on a slab rather than building a traditional building, because it's more like a climate-controlled warehouse than it is an office storage place.
But the current project?
The current project is only $465,000 for the planning and design.
Thank you.
Member Hand, for the record, I'm curious, where did the partners go that were with you at the last CIP, and are they out renting that expensive space, or are they in other state buildings?
For the record, Jeff Kintop, the Department of Agriculture took that Metro building that faces onto Sahara, and they turned that into their dry food storage building. And I think they found a refrigerated space somewhere else for the food that needed to be cooled down. Purchasing it did not. The site plan did not allow them to store too many vehicles, and they have vehicles that they get surplus out, so they needed a space that had more parking around it as well. So they I think they used the space that was available to them. It was a state space, and they were able just to fix it up to make it suitable.
Thank you.
One more question for you, Sean Stewart for the record. So I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. We're looking at a $7 to $8 million climate-controlled warehouse, and when we get that operational, we'd save over $1 million in current rental. Did I get that correct?
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Ward Patrick, for the record, thank you, Board, for hearing these important projects. The first project is the Department of Administration's item number 5, Grant Sawyer Office Building Refurbishment. This is a large building in southern Nevada. $224,000 square foot facility, originally opened in 1995. Originally, this project had indoor air quality problems coming out of the chute, and those problems continue in recent times, and investigations were completed by various indoor air quality experts. And this process revealed a lack of maintenance on the structure during those years, and therefore work was done to clean the carpeting in the building, replace various valves that were leaking, keep the ceiling tiles in order where if there were any leaks, those would be removed such that mold wouldn't grow inside the building. During some of these investigations, it was noted that there was failing piping underneath the floor slab, failing piping in some of the ceiling spaces, and mechanical ductwork needs. As a result of that, the Public Works Division enlisted our engineering and architecture staff to develop the project before you in the Capital Improvement Program book. So you'll see here 16 major construction items, including item number 1, the mechanical systems renovation for $9.5 million in today's dollars. That is to replace the duct. As a result of some of the sewerage upgrades, the floor would be impacted, and so there's floor tile removal, and the current carpeting in the facility is 23 years old. That would be replaced as a result of this project. A lot of the vertical pipe chases would need to be accessed. I can keep going, that's good. A lot of the vertical pipe chases would need to be accessed, and therefore there would be wall covering, wall demolition, wall repairs to be made. In order to do the piping upgrade, the ceiling grid would need to be replaced. You see that as item 5 in your book. Item 6 relates to the sewerage in the building. It turns out that the slope of the sewer underneath the floor slab is barely meets minimum code and is causing problems in the lower levels of the building. As a result, we would be looking at saw cutting the floor and replacing that line to improve the slope. Therefore, we'd be required to have a lift station and conduct some exterior work, and that's included in the site utilities item number 6 in your book. Various other items include a restroom upgrade, electrical lighting, camera and card access, life safety signage, the elevators. I believe there's 5 elevators in this building, 2 of which are largely inoperable at this time. Server rooms have been placed in this building by the using agencies and not been incorporated into the HVAC system, so we have systems fighting each other within the building. Zone control has been an issue in the building on a periodic basis. There's funding in here available for that. And while we're here, we would do a slurry seal on the parking lot within this project. So this is an effort where the internal staff of Public Works took a look at this building and said, what if these system failures, these piping failures that are in the ceiling are widespread? What would we do for a project? And so this is the resultant project based on a couple days of investigation by a number of our staff members and then a few days of cost estimating and scoping out the projects. Since that time, we've approached the Interim Finance Committee with a proposal to use existing funds to further study the engineering systems and also further study alternatives for the ultimate disposition of the building. So there'd be a phased but overlapping process where we're right now authorized to do engineering systems evaluation, and as that is being completed, the results of that would be used to do an architectural systems options evaluation. So the architectural options evaluations include 3 R's. Repair, which might be what you see here, this 56 million, might be more, might be less, but there will be a more intense 4,000 hour, this study will be 4,000 hours of effort that clearly the Public Works Division hasn't put in with our existing staff. So we got this repair option, could be more or less than this $55,000 item. We're looking at reprogramming the building, which means we would say possibly demo the building down to the floor slab and create a more architectural pleasing interior of this cavernous facility. And that project may include elimination of, if you've been in the building, there's an atrium in the building, and so there might be possibility of getting more usable space, making the building more efficient. So that's 2 of the R's, repair, reprogram, and then there's the option of replacing the building. And so this study that we're conducting here, there's a contract that is moving through the approval process. We've got a consultant on board, a series of consultants of engineering, contractors, and architects ready to begin work starting in October. This study is planned to be completed in early January, and conclusions should be forthcoming before the legislative session in early February. So that's this project. If you have any questions about this little guy.
I do have a question, a couple of them actually. The first question was this building constructed by the state originally 23 years ago? And if the answer is yes, I'm curious that in 23 years, systems need replacing and maintaining and upgrading, but they rarely need to be completely gutted and overhauled. So I'm just trying to understand what happened with this particular building.
Ward Patrick for the record. This is a state-constructed building. It was funded in the CIP in 1991, completed in 1995. It's surprising for us that largely this project is driven by some of the piping failures. And so we believe these are premature failures. And our current level of investigation hasn't resulted in any conclusions about why that's occurring, or if it's widespread, or if it's isolated. So the first step is to do that, call it engineering systems investigation, to see if those systems are widespread. And as part of that, we track down the source of that piping if indeed there's the premature failure is widespread.
Thank you. And I guess my second question then is why we're asking for $56 million versus a much smaller amount of money for investigation and the engineering and whatnot that you outlined.
Yeah, sorry for not, Ward Patrick for the record, sorry for not making that more clear. We now have authority to do a study of up to $500,000 of study money. And so that would be this engineering systems evaluation and the architectural options evaluation. So we're proceeding with that, preparing to modify this if necessary. And for the record, that what minor impact that would make to this project, some of the systems evaluation within this project would go down some minor amount.
For the record, Patrick Cates, if I could just add one thing to keep in mind, that of that $55 million, almost $10 million of it is related to the HVAC system. We had an approved project that proceeded to do some of the work for the HVAC system as well as roofing in the current biennium. And so even without the other issues that have come to light in the last year, we'd still be coming forward with a sizable chunk to continue that work. And if I could just add on to this, I think it came to my attention in the fall of last year, based on tenant complaints of some of the issues that we were having. That's when Gus Nunez was still the administrator. And Chris Shimitz and I and others spent a lot of time listening to the issues that people were having. There have been complaints about mold. We had to do an investigation with an industrial, we did an industrial hygienist, but we also engaged with a doctor of occupational health. And that process is ongoing. We have been told that the building is not unsafe for habitation, but there are a lot of concerns among some of the tenants about the suitability of the building. In the process of doing that, we discovered that the leaks were coming from the VAV valves, and enough money was found in the current HVAC project to replace those. But in addition to that, we replaced the valves, but we found that some of the lines are corroded. Again, don't know how systemic that is. We've also seen numerous cracked drainage pipes throughout the building. Just as an anecdote, I talked about this at Board of Examiners, as Secretary of State's on the top floor. When we put the new chillers in on the top floor, there were drains that had not been used, covered drains, and they pulled the drains open and flushed the chiller with water before firing it up. And those drains had cracks in them, and it leaked water through the ceiling and light sockets onto the Secretary of State's office, just as an example. And we found those here, there, and different places in the building. So it's really come to light that the building is in need of some significant help. We just don't quite know to the degree that it is needed, and I think the $55 million is probably the worst case scenario.
Ward Patrick, to add to that, so we're looking at this project. This is not all response to the immediate concerns. This is a response to, this is a 23-year-old building, and we're looking to take it into the future. So this will be an answer for major maintenance items for the next 20 years.
Perhaps we could use the records department of Southern Nevada to find the inspector that signed all this off, because this makes no sense to me. So I'd like to find out who okayed these pipes that don't meet the elevation standard for the drainage and a bunch. This seems just incredible to me. I've been in that building, I know it. But Patrick Cates, how old is your building over here? You started off talking about where you're at, behind here.
The library and archives is a 25-year-old building.
So they're the same building. I mean, the same, and you didn't seem to indicate anywhere near these kind of problems. This seems like an aberration of something abnormal. I'm staggered by this, so you have to do what you have to do to make it correct, but something was not done right in the beginning. I don't know what it could be, but this is a lesson. Thank you.
A final comment on this, Michael Johnson will be up here with Buildings and Grounds, and there'll be 2 or 3 other projects that'll be presented. And so it may be that some projects need to be implemented in the next CIP to bridge after, because if this building is operational for 4, 5, 6 more years before these projects come to being, there might be other CIPs that need to bridge that gap. So just a heads up that those projects will be forthcoming. If you're ready, Mr. Chairman, priority number 6. As I was discussing this project will be, my presentation here today will talk about repairs, talk about reprogramming and remodeling, and talk about some new construction or replacement buildings. So this building is all about reprogramming. This is the renovation of the Bradley building. It's our department rank number 6. This campus is on Sahara, and you'll see in red the Bradley building, the new Sahara DMV that was discussed earlier as a model for the South Reno DMV. The building was constructed in 1975, and all the building components are antiquated, including the structural systems. This building has been unoccupied for several years, and it's a possibility that it should be considered to be renovated to be occupied again. No, yeah, correct. Structural systems. So for instance, if we were, sorry about that. News here is in the Sawyer building, which we just talked about. That's a vintage 1995 building. The structural systems would be adequate to be reused if that building was reprogrammed. Here at the Bradley building, this is a 1975 vintage building and would require certain seismic upgrades as part of the renovation project. So this is a nearly $19 million project, and the project would demolish the building's exterior skin and interior systems to its structural core. It will also make structural and seismic upgrades to conform with the current codes. The roofing, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, and life safety systems will also be replaced. The building systems are beyond their useful life. The exterior is not energy efficient, and this project will bring the building back to a usable condition. Any questions on priority 6?
Member Ham for record. How many square feet is the building?
This building is 28,000 square feet.
About 10% of the Sawyer building.
Correct.
Tito Tiberti for the record. I thought I heard at the last meeting 6 months ago, whenever it was, that building might be demolished and start over. Am I misunderstanding what their discussion might have been?
That is also an option, and we'll see here later in the presentation that would be necessary if another large building were built on this site.
Second question is, what type of use do you think you would put in this building? And if you were to redo it, tear it down and start over, would it be the same use? And what would, just in your guess right now, 2 or 3, 4 years from now, a square foot cost for an adequate building to start all over again? What would that be roughly as compared to what this is going to be? And would you make it bigger for other uses, for future growth? Or I'm just questioning the idea of doing what we're talking about or tearing it down and starting over, and what makes sense.
This building was used for office space in the past, and it was built in 1975 approach to office space. And so it's the current layout is highly inefficient. There's a core for inner circulation, and then there's another core for more circulation within the building. And so this project would bring it into the higher efficiencies, say 60 or 65% efficient building or higher. This project has costs very comparable to new construction costs. And so this building is seen as though it may be value in the historic preservation community, and we're being sensitive to that with this project.
For the record, Patrick Cates, if I could just add to that, I know that the plan was to demolish the building and build another building at that. That was the former administrator's intent. I asked that this be revised, resurrected as for a consideration to renovate, in part because of the historic preservation value. We've got a lot of feedback from the historic preservation community about the building, and the issues that we're seeing in the Bradley building, or I'm sorry, not the Bradley building, the Grant Sawyer building, and contemplating phased construction over a period of time. This seemed like this could be a good option to provide some relief to that building. The last tenant who moved out a couple of years ago was Business and Industry, and they did a long-term lease for 10 years. It's possible they or somebody like that could come back and occupy this building. I can tell you, I don't know the square footage off the top of my head, but we have a very large square footage of private lease space in Las Vegas. And
Patrick, for the record, a brief leased office space analysis would let you know that statewide there's approximately 2 million square feet of lease space, of which in Las Vegas we have over 750,000 square feet of lease space. And in decreasing order in Carson City, there's approximately 700,000 square feet of lease space. And then in Reno, 250,000 square. That'll be a segue to these two lease purchase projects. The next project's department rank number 7, administration building at the Kincaid site in Carson City, Nevada. This is department rank number 7. Here's another site plan for the Capitol Complex. In red, you can see the former location of the Kincaid building. That's the proposed new site. To the north, you see the Icon building, the current location of the Public Works Board meetings, and the Fleet Services building to the right. Going around counterclockwise, we see the Nevada State Library and Archives building. It's the subject of the KIC project. There will be projects recommended for the Blaisdell building. Projects will be recommended later for the Capitol building, Nevada Supreme Court as well. You see the legislative facilities, State Printing Office, Department of Education, State Mail, and EATS, our Information Technology Group, and rounding out would be the Employment Training Rehabilitation Building. Following slide shows a facsimile of where that building would go. This project is planned to be 100% other funding, planned to be using the lease purchase procurement method. The building is estimated to cost approximately $74 million, and the professional services are planned to be approximately $9 million. This would design and construct a 100,000 square foot building at the Capitol Complex for the Department of Administration. This project also includes a demolition of the Blaisdell building, which would be after the move-in. Furnishings, fixtures, and equipment are also included in the project. The Department of Administration is currently housed in several state-owned and leased facilities throughout Carson City. Centralization of various agencies within a single facility will create greater efficiencies to the operations of the department. This building would allow the department to vacate the Blaisdell building, which is in need of multiple upgrades that are not economically feasible. Once the building is empty, it could then be demolished. As the Department of Administration moves into this new building, there would be other spaces vacated on the Capitol Complex, and other agencies would relocate from lease space. Any questions? Department rank number 8 is the advanced, I'm moving to number 11 here. We got a little out of order if you're following in the book. This is a state office building in Las Vegas. It has options of being located at the Grant Sawyer site or the Sahara site that we were just looking at previously. You'll see in this slide, in this next slide, you'll see the Grant Sawyer office building and Fantasy Park, and also that 50 kW of solar photovoltaics. Here's an idea of where the building would go. In the red, you see the proposed lease purchase Department of Administration building, as well as you see a proposed fleet services building that Robbie Burgess was discussing earlier as the priority 2 for the department. The other alternative, again, is on the East Sahara campus. You see the recently completed Sahara DMV on this site. You also see in the very center of this graphic, you see a blank spot. That's where the old DMV came down. Looking at this site plan, we can see the Department of Agriculture and a proposed agriculture warehouse, the new Sahara DMV, the Bradley building that was discussed as an earlier priority, a proposed Department of Administration building, which is the topic of this project, and the Record Center for Nevada State Library and Archives, as well as a McLeod building, and unlabeled at the north section of this state-owned facility is the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitations building. There's been some effort to further this project, thus the bird's eye view on this next graphic. And so within this graphic, you'll see the proposed lease purchase building on the right and the agriculture warehouse building on the left, and the new DMV located in the center of the graphic. This project is very similar to the prior project, approximately $80 million building with $9 million of planning required, and again would be a 100% other funded project by the lease purchase procurement method. State agencies are continuing to expand, and this is expected to continue through the next biennia. Weighted average leasing costs are in the Las Vegas area $1.88 per square foot per month. So, and the average market in the area is $2.10. And so what you see there is that the smaller buildings warrant higher lease rates. But so this project could be funded with some savings from the current cost to operate a building versus the rates that are being paid. Any questions on this project?
One quick question, Sean Stewart for the record. On your layout of the East Sahara site, you've got the proposed Department of Agriculture warehouse, and you have it ranked as number 1. I think number 1 was the library up here. What ranking is that Department of Agriculture warehouse?
Thank you, that's a good question. So that's Department of Agriculture, ranked #1. So the Department of Administration is the KIC building. Sorry for the confusion on the labeling there. Department of Agriculture presented earlier today, and they had a freezer project and that project.
I don't see any other questions, so thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Mike Torvinen. I serve as the 2019 Reno Rodeo President. We're in the midst of our 100-year celebration, and we're very proud of that. Today, we're presenting a plan to do some advanced planning on a master plan concept we've developed at what we call the State Fairgrounds on Wells Avenue in Sutro in Reno. We do have a video that I have not presented to these guys. Mr. Patrick has it. It's about 4 minutes. Mr. Wilden suggested I offer to show that if you'd like, but what we're trying to do is move past that conceptual master plan into some schematic drawings so we can further estimate the cost of building this facility we've created in our mind anyways, our master plan. It's a pretty grand plan, and we think it has a lot of merit. A little history on the site. In 1887, the state legislature appropriated money for the purchase of that land, and there was a trust established for the promotion and encouragement of agriculture, horticulture, mechanics, manufacturing, stock raising, and general domestic promotion to Nevadans. In 1951, that property was leased to the Washoe County, and they were included in that lease as a requirement that they maintain that trust and properly maintain the property. And Reno Rodeo was specifically mentioned in that lease as one of the users of the property. In 1986, Washoe County and Reno Sparks Convention and Visitors Authority entered into a management agreement whereby the Convention Authority would then manage the property and again was responsible for the maintenance of the property. In the late 80s, the Convention Authority issued some bonds and built what is now the indoor arena at the facility. In our master plan, that's the only building we would intend to remain on the site and would be refurnished and rehabilitated to be as grand as the rest of the facility. The Public Works Board did a facility condition analysis report, and there's about $16 million of deferred maintenance on the property right now. If we were to pursue this plan, you could probably save about $8 million because the only thing we would intend to keep is that indoor arena. Reno Rodeo has spearheaded this project and with the intention of creating an event center that goes well beyond Reno Rodeo and well beyond rodeo itself. We believe the center itself could be a major event center that would benefit the entire Northern Nevada community. Outdoor concerts, conventions, rodeos other than ours of all types that we think we could target. College finals rodeo would fit in with the schedule, high school finals rodeo, national high school finals rodeo, circuit finals. But beyond that, we think we are believing we've created a vision of an event center that can go well beyond all of that, but be a major hub for high-end and world-class equestrian events. Bring those back. We've had some in the past. They've wandered off. Some are coming back. We're having some success, but we think we need to move on and create a nicer facility for the future and the benefit of the Reno Sparks community. We think it would draw people, put beds in heads, and we're willing to participate in any way we can. Again, we spearheaded this effort. We paid for the advanced planning or the master planning document and video. And the other funding you see on this project estimate would be most likely coming from Reno Rodeo. We've set aside sufficient funds to cover that amount. I can't act unilaterally for the group, but we did set it aside for this purpose, and I would take it to our board and get a formal vote to go ahead and support this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Appreciate your time. I understand this is the afternoon of the second day of your hearings.
Any questions? I happened to watch the video, and grand is an understatement. It's it looks like a pretty awesome center. I'm hopeful that it gets built, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Appreciate the support. Thank you.
Well, with that, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm the Facilities Manager for State Public Works Division, Buildings and Grounds Section. And what I'm here to present to you are the remaining 41 projects out of our top 50 concerns in our CIP book. And I promise to get through these quickly. First on our list, we'll start at number 9, is the Grand Sawyer building. We've heard a little bit about that today. This project would replace the existing fire alarm systems, also perform some maintenance on the smoke dampers. The alarm panel itself is original to the building's construction. It's been entirely problematic. In particular, over the last 12 to 18 months, we've got 127 trouble alarms that we've experienced. And we've also experienced during the month of July and August 2 unannounced fire alarms that evacuated the building, which caused a disruption to state's business. And also this comes under the recommendation of both our fire service provider and the fire marshal's office, who have looked at it and they said yes, they agree that it's at the end of its useful life. And next, number 10 is also the Grand Sawyer building. This project would look to change out the existing card access system. It too is original to the building's construction, and it is no longer supported by the manufacturer. So at this point, we are unable to add people or doors to the system. And at any point, if we lose one of the control panels, there are 10 in the building, we would actually give up controlled security of 10% of our building. And as each one fails, excuse me, we lose another 10%. So again, it's recommended. Yeah, as each one of these panels fail because they're no longer supported by the manufacturer, they're of age to be replaced, we will lose control of at least 10% of our building. Next is number 12. We'll move to the DMV in Carson City. This project is related directly to the purchasing warehouse. It would repair the failing tilt-up concrete panels and other concrete portions of the building. Also, we would replace the concrete ramp, stairs, and railings and do the repairs and finishes to the exterior of the building as well. Next, for number 13, we'd move to the Marlet Lake water system. This project would provide for the replacement of 3 surface water catchment basins, number 1, number 2, and the tunnel catchment. There are actually 7 up there currently. The replacement of the 3 additional catchments is expected to increase water flow from its current flow of 350 gallons per minute to a potential of 700. And just as a note, the system was originally designed to only carry 350 gallons per minute, so this would be an increase for what we could provide from the Marlet water system. Number 14, this project would replace approximately 3.5 miles of the 18-inch water transmission main with a new 24-inch ductile iron transmission main from the diversion dam to the sawmill site. As you can see from the pictures, the existing pipeline, besides being in service for over 70 years, we've got bands in place to mitigate some of the leaks. The picture on the right shows where the pipeline is beginning to slough off the mountain. And in addition, some of these sections of the line have been partially crushed by wildfire response vehicles, so it's definitely in need of a refreshment. Next, again, number 15 is also the Marlet Lake water system. This project would provide for design and install controls, metering, and associated instrumentation updates at the diversion dam, and as well as providing some safety handrails on the dam for personnel protection. The pictures below show what's in place now, which is a manual valve, and it's really tough to activate and extremely hard to find in the middle of winter. And on the right-hand side, we'll see where some of the system components have suffered damage from fallen timber. Again, number 16, Marlet Lake water system. This project would provide for advanced planning for design through construction documents to replace the 2.6 mile long 8-inch main transmission line from the tunnel catchment to the diversion dam with a new 12-inch line. And currently the existing 8-inch transmission line is more or less insufficient to transport the current offlow. And when we go back and look at item number 13 with the enhancements made to the 3 catchments, that will then begin to oversupply that supply line. So we won't be able to capture the water even though it's available. Next, these 2 projects, number 17 and 18, these also are related to the Marlette Lake water system. Project number 17, item 17 rather, would replace the small 15 kW generator. This generator, besides being outdated, and at the end of its useful life supplies power to the remote control systems and also maintains the charge on the batteries that starts the large generator. And with regards to the large generator, that's project number 18, and this project would replace that generator because it's also at the end of its useful life. And along with the generator, we would change out the pump motor and install a new transfer switch and a VFD to operate the pump. And it has a note to be made here, the Marlette Hobart water system, in addition to serving water to Carson City, is the only source of water for Virginia City and Story County. So it's pretty important that we maintain this. Moving on to 19, again, Marlette Lake water system. This project would design and construct a vehicle bridge across the Hobart Reservoir spillway. The project scope includes grading, site grading, installation of a prefabricated bridge structure, and placement of riprap. And if you look at the picture below, during times of offlow or significant offlow, the road that crosses this spillway is washed out, and that's the only means of access to the dam for maintenance. Again, Marlette Lake water system number 20. This project would provide design through schematic design documents to rehabilitate both the Marlette Lake and Hobart Reservoir dams. The full scope includes assessment of existing conditions, regrading, placement of riprap, spillway repair, and discharge piping and valve repairs. It's important to note that failure of these dams would not only interrupt water supplies to Carson and Story County, but it would potentially damage property and endanger life in Lake Tahoe and Washoe lake basins if they should fail. And as another point of interest, both of these dams are 140 years in age. And the one on the left, as you can note in the picture, is suffering leakage through the dam.
I got a quick question with respect to the lake. What's the amount of water being held in that reservoir?
The Marlette Lake itself holds 4,500 acre-feet of water, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Moving on to number 21, we'll come back to Carson City area and we'll look at building 89 out at the Stewart facility. This project would replace the air-cooled chiller, the chilled water pumps, piping, and associated piping accessories and temperature controls. The chiller itself is in excess of 20 years old. It's at the end of its useful life, and this particular unit uses R22 refrigeration, which after January 1st of 2020 will no longer be available in the United States. Number 22, DMV Carson City. This project would provide for the advanced planning through construction documents for the replacement of the central plant, chilled hot water distribution piping, air handling units, terminal units, and computer room cooling systems at all the buildings at the DMV facility in Carson City. And in essence, as you will see as we go through the rest of these slides, the boilers, the chillers, associated piping and whatnot, it's in excess of 20 years old and at the end of its life. And that really basically pertains to the rest of the buildings we're going to review. So next, we'll look at our ranking of number 23 and 24. That's the Henderson DMV and Library and Archives, respectively. And also down at the bottom, you'll note that I've put in here ranks of 25, 26, 27, and 28, which refer to the Capitol, the Attorney General Central Plant, the Laxalt Central Plant, and the Donovan DMV. As again, all of these facilities have HVAC equipment that's in excess of 20 years of age, hard to maintain, and really at the end of their useful life. Belrose Building, Las Vegas, same thing. We're looking at the package units to replace them. They're more than 20 years old and reached the end of their useful service life. right at this point, it's incredibly difficult to maintain any level of temperature comfort or air quality standards because these units are constantly going down. In fact, we've replaced 2 AC compressors recently in one of these units. Again, at the Belrose building, this project, number 30, would replace the plumbing throughout the building. The copper water lines periodically experience active leaks, and the sewer lines are rusting through and are leaking through the no-hub fittings. Project 31, also for the Belrose, would upgrade the electrical low-voltage communication systems. Those systems are in excess of 45 years old. They're original to the building, so yeah, they're overloaded and well past time to be replaced. Next, we have 33 and 34. These projects would provide for the seismic retrofits of both the old Armory building here in Carson City and the Attorney General's the Heroes Memorial building and its annex. This project provides for structural seismic reinforcement of those buildings. We're looking for planning and design, and that's requested for the 2 projects because they are the last 2 buildings in the Capitol complex that require seismic retrofits.
Just to comment on that, I don't know if you're just trying to keep us awake or not, but that's a great photo. Not sure if it's downtown Carson City, but very effective.
Thank you. So again, the project for the Heroes Memorial and Annex would provide valuable office space, which also is direly needed in the Capitol complex, as well as both of these would contribute to historic preservation of the downtown area. Next, we'll look at some various buildings for elevator replacements. This includes several, the Belrose building, the Laxalt, the Icon, the Blasdell, and the NSLA. For the most part, these elevators are original to the building's construction. And with regards to the Belrose, the Laxalt, and the Icon, those elevators are really old. They were installed in roughly 1955, so we've got 62 years worth of use out of them, but it's time to upgrade and put in some nice code-compliant features along the way. Next, Capitol Building, number 39. This project would replace the deteriorating exterior concrete breezeways and stairs, and I'm sure that all of us have probably walked on that at some point between today and yesterday. So yeah, this would eliminate a safety hazard, and so the idea is to prevent a future safety hazard. Next, for items number 41, 42, and 43, that includes the Library and Archives in Blasdell, the Supreme Court, and the Attorney General's office. These projects would install cameras and recording systems in and around these office buildings where they currently do not exist, or upgrade what's currently there. Typically, these areas are experienced or visited by elected officials, other high-ranking individuals, and so the upgraded camera system would provide improved coverage and also the ability to record in case of an event, and it could be reviewed by Capitol Police and whoever else. Moving on, we have for 44, 45, and 46 various buildings site drainage improvements. These projects would provide design through construction documents to improve drainage at the Stewart facility, which is pretty much as flat as this tabletop. The Reno Purchasing Warehouse, which is prone to flooding in the parking areas and delivery areas on the west side of the building, and the Attorney General's building, which constantly, because of where it's located, we have water infiltration into the building in numerous areas. Number 47, this project is for the Bryan Building exterior envelope rehabilitation. This project includes repair replacement of the exterior building components, which would include the roof membrane, exterior insulating wall or EIFS system, the parapet coping, flashing, and then also recaulking and regasketing around the curtain wall system to keep the water out. Next at 48, the Reno Purchasing Warehouse. This project would replace the existing 140 kilowatt generator with a 500 kilowatt generator and a new transfer switch. Currently, the generator, despite being 20 years of age, it's also overloaded. It cannot pick up and carry the third walk-in cooling box there. So in the event of a power failure, the generator itself fails. It's just not large enough to carry the load. Number 49, back to the Grant Sawyer office building in Las Vegas. This project would replace the 8 roof-mounted air handling units. The 8 roof-mounted air handling units. They're approximately 23 years of age. They're original to the construct of the building, and it's, in essence, they've exceeded or met their useful service life. And last, we have the Blasdale building. This project would replace the distribution panels, feeders, receptacles, lighting, and communication systems throughout the building. And this is actually a continuation of another project that was conducted through Public Works, where they had installed a new electrical service to the building. So this makes sense to continue that in that effort. And so that concludes our review of the Department of Administration's top 50 priorities.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Ward Patrick, for the record, the last 8 or 10 projects in the Department of Administration relate to the statewide programs. So we have a prioritization system that we use for the roofing systems, for ADA systems, responding to Department of Justice concerns. There's fire and life safety items in there where fire alarms are failing or buildings haven't had suppression systems. We've included those in here for your review. We've got the advanced planning program, which enables this book to be completed with impromptu engineering and architectural studies, as well as our staff completing this due diligence. We have a paving program in there, and in recent years we've not recommended any paving or any paving maintenance, and so those systems are continuing to degrade. And the final item in here is indoor air quality program, and without going into any further ado on those are the statewide programs at the end of the book here under Department of Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Are there any questions before we move on to agenda item number 10? Moving on to agenda item number 10, Administrator's Report on Agency Activities.
Ward Patrick, for the record. First item on agency activities would be the last activities presented. We discussed 6 or 8 new employees, and those new employees have been actively working and doing due diligence and presenting this book. And some of the leadership that came about from there was Mr. Bruce Nip, our mechanical engineer, who's our interim deputy administrator. And he was sitting halfway back here throughout most of the day yesterday. And so his planned retirement is going, I'm sure he's online right now listening to this, and I'd just like to thank him very much for his 32 years of service to the Public Works Division. He was the glue that kept our contract documents together, provided a lot of policy movements for the agency, and initiated a lot of these mechanical systems being upgraded in a timely manner. And so I'd like to thank Bruce publicly for his years of service. A little bit on the activities of the construction projects. We've provided the board a handout of the various projects that have construction activities, and so that's for your review. I would comment that, as stated earlier, the DM, regarding the timeliness of the delivery of these projects, the DMV Reno facility, the first item on the list, based on the agency's request to meet a Nevada Day opening, this project will be delivered 3 months later than what was anticipated a year and a half ago. The Public Works Division submitted schedules on all these major projects to the Governor's Office and the Governor's Office of Finance, and so this one is 3 months late. Looking at the second item, the Speedway Readiness Center, we're 3 months early on that project. Expected delivery is May of 2020. The UNR engineering building, the third item, is under construction, and the expected date of completion was June 22nd of 20, and the current expected date of completion is 3 days after that, so we're pretty close on that one. Looking at the Southern Desert Correctional Center, Unit 8, that was an urgent project for the Department of Corrections, and that project is being delivered 4 months early. It's under construction as we speak. Nevada State Veterans Home, the original expected completion time frame was around Christmas of this year, and we've had some time extensions in construction. We're about 37 days after the expected date that was established approximately 18 months ago. We're working together with UNLV on the medical school project, and we believe we've established a good schedule here. So this schedule that you see in this line item for project 17-C15 will be used as kind of a milestone yardstick for the success of that project. It still needs to go into schematic design, needs to get approval from the legislature for a two-phase scope. The final three projects are the planning projects that the university system discussed, and the reason that I present the anticipated notice to proceed or expected certificate of substantial completion date is so you're aware of the inflation that was applied to those projects. For the projects that are in there, there's 24 months of anticipated inflation. Those projects, the 10% annual percentage rate was applied until the midpoint of construction. Final two items on projects I would offer is, if you want to make a note of this, if you're available on February 17th, the Northern Nevada Veterans Home is having a ceremonial ribbon cutting. That's in the afternoon at 5:30 p.m. on December 17th. We can get these to you in email as well. And then there's a Wounded Warrior Memorial. There's approximately 800 to 900 servicemen that from Nevada that gave their lives, and this is a memorial to honor them, and that is planned for a couple days before Veterans Day, November 9th. In the morning, there will be a reception at 9 o'clock and a ribbon cutting at 11 o'clock. A final item would be at the last board meeting, we talked about various BDRs that were being considered, and as a result of work with the executive branch, there's a couple items that will be on the governor's approved list of BDRs. This item is, there's two items within this BDR in summary. The deferred maintenance projects are critical to maintaining the state's inventory of buildings and other facilities. Currently, there are no recommendations for new deferred maintenance projects submitted with each biennium as there is for CIPs. This proposal will request the Public Works Administrator before October 1 of each even-numbered year to submit a recommendation of the deferred maintenance projects in the next biennium. This will better inform policymakers charged with deciding the allocation of funding of projects. So the intent here is to be in line with the board's letter to the governor's office to make sure the governor's office is aware of other deferred maintenance projects that go much deeper than we would normally provide to the governor's office. The second BDR is a BDR to increase the authority for State Parks Division as well as the military to enter into construction projects. And so currently the State Parks Division has the authority to do construction projects without the oversight of the Public Works Project Management section up to 1,500 square feet. They're proposing to increase their square footage to 3,000 square feet. Department of Military is looking to increase their authority. They basically have to come, they have the opportunity to come for a delegation of authority to the Public Works Division, and so we'll be this movement in this BDR would allow the military to, if approved, to have authority to execute certain types of projects. In addition to that, there's language included to articulate the criteria for delegation of authority for these agencies and other agencies to manage their own projects, and it also includes an appeals process should the delegation be denied, because the delegation of authority is approved by the administrator at this time. That concludes the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Are there any questions? I publicly want to say to you, welcome to the administrator position. Great job by you and your team in getting this put together in fairly short order. So just wanted that to be known. We're glad to have you. You also have spent many years in the department and getting ready for this role. So I'm glad you're on board. Moving on to agenda item number 11, board comments. Are there any board comments on any agenda item? Are there any items to be included in future agendas? On September 6, 2018, there will be a board meeting for the administrator's recommendations to the board for the 2019 CIP. On September 13, 2018, board meeting for the State Public Works Board's recommendation to the governor for the 2019 CIP. Are there any review of action items for State Public Works Division management? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 12, public comment. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.